True crime, but make it funny. These are the most evil things that people have ever done. Number 10, the Hook Man. Between 1978 and 1986, there were 23 attacks in the greater Houston area that followed a similar pattern. A lone gunman would approach a parked car occupied by a couple, usually in their 50s or 60s, and knock on the window with a hook. When the driver rolled down the window to investigate, the man would reach in, grab the keys, and take the car. The crazy thing is that all of the cars were taken from the same parking lot, and the victims were always described as quiet and unassuming. But who was this mysterious Hook Man? Well, in 2001, a former police officer came forward claiming that he and his partner were responsible for the crimes. They apparently used a 12-gauge shotgun to mimic the sound of a knock and then grabbed the keys from the driver's side window. The ex-cop said that he had no regrets. Okay, maybe he did. Number 9, Poison Pen Pals. In 2015, a woman from South Carolina started receiving letters in the mail. At first, she thought it was a secret admirer, but the tone of the letters quickly changed from friendly to threatening, and then the writer started making some pretty messed up demands. The woman wrote back saying that she didn't know what he was talking about and that she wanted him to stop sending her letters. But the pen pal got even more pissed and started writing, "You ruined our friendship. Now I'm going to ruin your life." He also made threats against her family and friends. So the woman did what any reasonable person would do. She took the letters to the post office and asked them to track the sender. It turns out that her poison pen pal was none other than her husband. He was arrested and later sentenced to 10 years in prison. Number 8, Deadly Devotion. For 2 years, a woman from New York fantasized about killing her friend and stealing her identity. She even wrote a story about it and posted it online. But something in her life must have triggered her to actually carry out the murder, because not long after, her friend was found dead in her home, and the killer was nowhere to be seen. The victim's brother immediately suspected foul play and called the police. They soon discovered that the only person who knew about his sister's plans to move to Colorado was the woman who had written the story about the murder. Police searched her house and found several items belonging to her friend. She was arrested and charged with second-degree murder. 7. The Art of the Steal. Meet the world's worst art thief, David Gunn. In 2013, an art collector from California called the police to report that someone had stolen a painting from his home. When officers arrived, they noticed that the thief had left behind a rather suspicious piece of paper. It was a business card that read, "Gun for Hire." The collector recognized the name. He had hired the individual in question to clean his pool. So he pulled up the CCTV footage, and sure enough, there was the culprit hard at work on his latest masterpiece. The art collector confronted him, but when he tried to grab the painting, the pool guy pulled out a gun and shot him in the leg. He then escaped with the painting and $50,000 in cash. David Gunn was later sentenced to 35 years in prison. Number 6, Stolen Valor. You won't believe how many people are in jail for faking their way into the military. At least 27 people have been convicted of stolen valor since 2013. Some of them even went to war. In 2014, a man from Florida named Jose Luis del Toro pleaded guilty to collecting more than $100,000 in veterans' benefits while pretending to have PTSD, a back injury, and other ailments. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison and ordered to pay back every cent. Another man, Timothy Parlatore, received a much lighter sentence. He was given 10 months probation after he was caught lying about his service in Iraq. 5. Chicken Run. In 2011, a man from New Jersey decided to rob a bank. He entered the establishment calmly and handed the teller a note saying that he needed $4,000 in cash. But just as he was about to leave, an employee blocked his path and demanded that he give back the money. The robber pulled out a gun and fired it in the air. The employee backed off and the robber made his getaway. What you didn't know was that the whole thing had been planned out by a pair of lovebirds. The accomplice had set up the entire robbery so she could collect on the insurance money. That's right. This Bonnie and Clyde duo had planned to split the insurance money between themselves and flee to Mexico. But cops caught on, and they were both sentenced to 10 years in prison. 4. Wrong target. In 2015, a man from Arizona named William Coman planned to rob a bank. He even wrote down the address of the bank and drew a map to get there. But when he showed up, he realized that he had made a mistake. Instead of robbing the bank, William robbed a Taco Bell. He walked up to the counter and announced that he had a gun. The cashier didn't believe him, so William reached under his jacket to prove that he was serious. The cashier complied, and William got away with $600. He was later sentenced to 18 months in prison. Number 3, monkey business. In 2014, a group of thieves from China stole 10 tons of bananas, worth over $100,000. The owner of the plantation where the bananas were grown said that he had never seen anything like it. All the bunches of bananas had been cut down and piled up neatly beside the road. The thieves had even gone so far as to block the plantation's security cameras with plastic sheeting. The motive behind the bizarre crime was even stranger. The thieves intended to sell the bananas at a higher price in another province. Apparently, people there were willing to pay through the nose for the fruit because they believed that it was grown using superior technology. 2. Road rage. Road rage is bad enough when it involves a normal person, but what if it involves an undercover narcotics officer? In 2006, an African-American police officer was driving home from work when he was cut off by a white van. He let it slide, but the driver of the van later retaliated by flipping him off. The officer pulled over and confronted the man, but the situation quickly escalated into a full-blown fistfight. When backup arrived, they discovered that the man in the van was none other than John Gotti, the notorious mob boss. The officer was suspended after an investigation revealed that he had thrown the first punch. Gotti was charged with obstruction of government administration, but the charges were later dropped. Number 1. Cannibal Corpse. Jeffrey Dahmer was one of the most prolific serial killers in American history. He murdered 17 men between 1978 and 1991, but his crimes were so heinous that he became known as the Milwaukee Monster. Most of his victims were African-American men who had been reported missing. Their families would call the police, but Jeffrey always claimed that they had simply run away from home. Eventually, he was caught and sentenced to 15 consecutive life sentences. Thanks for watching. Which of these crimes was the most evil? Let me know in the comments, and remember to subscribe if you haven't already.